Ladies and gentlemen, from the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice, Deacon Gerald Celente.
Hello, this is Deacon Celente of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. Freedom, peace, justice. We're losing all three of them. And my greatest concern right now is peace. Very, very, very few people are talking about peace on earth, goodwill to men and women. All they're talking about is war. If you pick up the New York Times and you look at the photo on the front page, this is Friday, of a man sitting alone in his half-wrecked home. An airstrike blew out the wall of a home in Kramatorsk in Ukraine. Wall Street Journal, same day, same town. Russian missile strikes in Ukraine intensify. The Ukrainian serviceman on Thursday walks next to an apartment building destroyed by the shelling in eastern Ukraine by the Russians. Day after day, week after week, and now month after month, every day these photos, page after page after page, of Russia's war with Ukraine. These are the same newspapers that in America's ongoing wars of 20 years in Afghanistan did not show America's and NATO's destruction and murder of hundreds of thousands of people. They didn't show photos day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year after year after year after year after year after year, day in and day out, of America's and NATO's mass murder and destruction of Afghanistan. Nor did they do that with America's destruction of Raqqa in Syria, or America's destruction and millions of deaths in Iraq. They didn't show these. They didn't show these of America's wars and NATO's wars. But day after day, they keep promoting war. World War III has begun. I warned about this when Russia launched the war on February 24th of this year. We are totally opposed to the war. We are a church of freedom, peace, and justice. Two wrongs don't make a right. And this is a clear example of the pot calling the kettle black. America's wars of aggression in the 20th and 21st century are above everybody's. Yet, the politicians keep talking about bringing freedom and democracy to other countries, a line that they've been using forever. These are some headlines from France. Biden tours anti-tank missile factory, urges billions for Ukraine. These weapons touched by your hands are in the hands of Ukrainian heroes, making a significant difference, Biden said at the Lockheed Martin factory in Troy, Alabama this past week. It's Tuesday, which has produced more than 50,000 of the tank-busting rockets in the last 2 decades. Biden told workers they should be proud of their role and that they are helping the Ukraine forces, quote, make fools of the Russian military in many instances, end quote. Biden is asking for $33 billion for more weaponry. Quote, this fight is not going to be cheap, he said. Not going to be cheap, this fight. As poverty increases, as more people take to the streets because they're homeless, as people living barely can't even live from paycheck to paycheck. And NATO and the United States has already sent $40 billion to Ukraine since 2014 when they overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych. Another article. Biden praises Lockheed Martin for making Javelin missiles in Alabama plant. The bottom line, there's a quote, is I came to say thank you, thank you, thank you. That's the reason I'm here. Lloyd Austin, who is the head of the Defense Department in the United States, formerly sat on the board of directors of Raytheon. U.S. officials have made it clear their plans in Ukraine go beyond Kiev winning the war. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, again, who served on the board of Raytheon, said one of the U.S. goals in Ukraine is to, quote, weaken, end quote, Russia. And javelins are made, it's a joint venture between Lockheed and Raytheon. Lockheed is the number one defense contractor in the United States, and Raytheon is the number two. I've been in those battlefields, said Biden at that meeting, where these missiles are fired. And I spent a lot of time going in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan, maybe a total of 40 times. And I tell you what, you and I have been in Ukraine a lot prior to the war and on the border since the war. And it's amazing what you've done. Oh, you've been in Ukraine. And you've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, wars going on. 40 times you've been there. Illegal wars based on lies. And you're criticizing the Russians. We see on the news every single day the atrocities and the war crimes that are being committed by Russian forces in Ukraine, directed by Vladimir Putin. Biden said, and it is, quote, gut-wrenching. But what about America's every single day of war atrocities that we weren't seeing every day by the propagandists who only promote what they want? These javelins I saw, there's 10 for every tank that's in Ukraine now. We built weapons. No, you really do. But we built the weapons and the equipment that helped defend freedom and sovereignty in Europe years ago. Freedom and sovereignty with weapons. This is demonic. This is war talk. You are allowing Ukraine to defend themselves, and quite frankly, they're making fools of the Russian military in many instances, he says. A big part of the reason they've been able to keep on fighting and make this war a strategic failure for Russia is because the United States, together with our allies and partners, have their back. So, in other words, they are accessories to the war crime. If you give a murderer weapons to go kill people, and you know that they're going to kill people with the weapons you gave them, you're an accessory to the crime. America and the Allies are not in a proxy war with Russia. They are at war with Russia. World War III has begun. He goes on to say, again, the money is direct investment in defending freedom and democracy. How many times have you heard that line? And he goes on to say, as I said from the beginning, this fight is not going to be cheap. And he goes on to close out by saying, so again, let me end where I began. I came for a basic reason. He came for a basic reason to the military industrial complex, number one defense contractor in the United States. The military industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower, five-star president, supreme commander of the Allied forces, who warned the American people 2 days before he left office in January 1961 in his farewell address that the military industrial complex is taking over the nation and robbing the people. And he was 100% right. And that's where Biden went and has keep talking about how proud he is of the weapons of death. So again, let me end where I began. I came for a basic reason, from the bottom of my heart, to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you continue to do. Then he says, may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you so much. And then an applause. God protect our troops? Are our troops in Ukraine? Are they being prepared to be sent there? May God bless you all for making weapons of death. God bless you all for making weapons of death. This is blasphemy. This is blasphemy. And this man calls himself a Catholic? What Jesus does he believe in? Even the Pope came out this past week and blamed barking of NATO as a precedent for preceding the invasion. What we've been saying, what's been written in the Trends Journal back in 2014 when the United States overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych. And the promise at the end of the Soviet Empire was that NATO, quote, would not move 1 inch further. Pope Francis said that barking of NATO at the door of Russia may have led to the invasion. And the United States is providing intelligence that help Ukraine target Russian warships. That's according to CNN and NBC News. They've also reported that the United States provided intelligence that killed some 12 Russian generals. Could you imagine if Russia did this with America's illegal wars and invasions of Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. It's not Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, if they provided weapons and killed American top leaders, could you imagine the outrage? U.S. helped Kiev in targeting Russian generals, New York Times, May 5th. UK leader addressing Ukraine parliament promises more weapons. Britain has provided some $2.5 billion, including 6,000 anti-tank missiles. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said America stands firmly with Ukraine and will be there for you until the fight is done. And she called for, quote, the strongest possible military response. More war. No one is talking about peace. One person is calling this out, and you wouldn't have thought it would come from him. And it's in Time magazine this week. And it's by Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who they call Lula, in Brazil, who's running again as for president of Brazil against Bolsonaro. And he said about Zelensky, he said, okay, you're a nice comedian, because Zelensky played a comedian on TV before becoming president. He was a comedian that played the president of Ukraine before he became president. Okay, you're a nice comedian, but let us not make war for you to show up on TV. We need to reach an agreement, he said. But people encouraging the war, you are encouraging this guy Zelensky, and he thinks he's a cherry on the cake. This guy is as responsible as Putin for the war. He did want war, Zelensky. If he didn't want war, he would have negotiated a little more. That's it, Lula said. This president of Ukraine could have said, come on, let's stop. Let's talking about NATO business and joining NATO in the EU. Let's discuss a bit more first. Didn't do any of it. He goes on to say, it's not just Putin who's guilty. The US and the EU are also guilty. What was the reason for the Ukraine invasion? NATO? Then the US and Europe should have said, Ukraine won't join NATO. That would have solved the problem. The Europeans could have said, no, now is not the moment for Ukraine to join the EU. They didn't have to encourage the confrontation. So there you have it. Am I angry? People say, Deacon Salenti, you get angry. St. Thomas Aquinas emphasizes that anger is fundamentally one of the passions of the soul. And like other passions, it is part of the human nature and has an appropriate role to play in the human pursuit of good when directed by reason. I am angry about war. I'm directed by the reason of peace. He who is not angry, said St. Thomas Aquinas, when there is just cause for anger, is immoral. Why? Because anger looks to the good of justice. And if you can live amid injustice without anger, you are immoral as well as unjust. Now is the time for peace. Please do what you can. All the money that we get for the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice, we're putting together to launch a major peace campaign. We're doing it the best we can. United we stand, divided we will die. We are living hell on earth. Look what's going on in the United States with this Roe versus Wade. The right for women to have an abortion. And now they say they're going to abandon that. And you're hearing people like Planned Parenthood saying, my body, my choice. You're hearing people like the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who locked down the entire state and has pushed stringent forced vaccines into the human body, saying that abortion is a constitutional right. Both of these, the governor and Planned Parenthood, are hypocrites. It's not my body, my choice anymore. It's my body, their choice. Planned Parenthood, in April of last year, 1 year ago, spent millions and millions and millions of dollars telling people they should get vaccinated with the Operation Warp Speed inoculation. Now, of course, they're questioning the one with Johnson & Johnson, the side effects it's giving. But yet, they're saying, my body, my choice. They are outright hypocrites. The same thing with Gavin Newsom. It's your constitutional right to have an abortion. It's your body, your choice. But I am the governor, and I will tell you what you have to put into your body. From Biden to Planned Parenthood to Gavin Newsom to all these politicians around the world and so-called health experts, the world is being run by demonic people. They are robbing us of our freedom, robbing us of our peace, and robbing us of justice. Do what you wish, do what you can. We need your support. You can't do it without money. And of course, we offer the religious vaccine exemptions, internationally and nationally. We give everything we can for freedom, peace, and justice. And we ask you to do all you can for freedom, peace, and justice. Because we are living in hell on earth, and it's ready to explode into World War III if we don't stop it. Thank you, and may your God bless you. Amen and amen.